The fact that we are just 2 weeks away from crowning a champion, probably now closer to one, is impressive in itself. But now that the NFL season is finally coming to a close, I can make a video reflecting on the many storylines and lessons learned from this season. Probably make a part 2 playoff edition after the Super Bowl, depending how this does. If you do end up liking this video and you want to see more, consider showing some love, comment down below, like, whatever you need to do. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. Now first off, this season taught us how to destroy a team. Houston is now the official poverty sports city. That Astros sold their soul for that one World Series win. Now the whole city of Houston is paying for it. It was just last postseason that the Texans were looking like a perennial contender in the AFC. They had a 27 or was it 28 point lead on the Super Bowl champion. Deshaun Watson, a top 5 QB, dang near transcendent talent, fell to their lap at 12. They had a top 3 receiver in D-Hop and have had JJ Watt for a number of seasons. With a couple tweaks, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they will be contending for championships. But I gotta give props to the notorious B.O.B. He completed the greatest sabotage in NFL history. His beginning moves were subtle, trading a top pick for a relatively overpaid Tunzel, a move that wouldn't turn too many heads as, you have to protect your QB. He turns around and makes the worst trade I've ever seen, giving away D-Hop for a bag of chips. Just like that, a once promising team lost faith in the organization, lost faith in management, and Bill O'Brien doesn't care. He's not gonna live with the effects at all. Instead, he's gonna be living it up in Alabama. But the real lesson here isn't about B.O.B. It's about his enablers. Management willingly gave him the powers and responsibilities of both a GM and a head coach. Either there were no checks or balances on him, or no one in the chain of command saw that trade and didn't think to say anything. Very tragic story and an obvious lesson. And now the Texans will probably be the first team to trade an elite QB before they even hit their prime. The Bills also came up short against Mahomes, but this season was an undeniable success. Just 4 years ago, Nathan the GOAT Peterman was their QB. They looked to be forever imprisoned in mediocrity with no future. This season, they were 1 game from the Super Bowl. This turnaround started with the hire of Sean McDermott and their GM Brandon Beane, 2 guys who had culture as their #1 priority. They aimed to build a locker room where guys didn't just respect each other as co-workers, but would sacrifice for each other on and off the field. But the classic sentimental stuff we watch in football movies. They chose to tear everything down and rebuild the team in their framework. They refused to give Gilmore a big contract, which at the time seemed like a very Bills move, so he would end up with their division rivals. You got Sammy Watkins, Ronald Darby, and Marcel Darius, who would also be traded, replaced by lesser known team first veterans like Micah Hyde, Kyle Williams, and Lorenzo Alexander. They're not going to pay anyone a premium price until they found their young core. The moves resetting their cap situation and giving them draft capital to infuse the team with young talent. By 2019, it was clear who would be part of that moving forward. Trey White, Matt Milano, Deion Hawkins for 2017, and Josh Allen, Edmonds, Phillips, and Johnson in 2018. The revolutionary part of all this is that they went all in, surrounding this core with team first, discount veterans, especially on the defensive side of the ball. None of their chosen generation, especially Allen, was under pressure to perform early on, and instead could develop in a rich winning culture. They had their promising young core, they went out and got their X factor, that being a #1 receiver for their young QB. Stephon Diggs has taken the next step into stardom this season, leading the NFL in both reception and yardage. His deep route running prowess was perfect for this downfield Bills offense. Now speaking of #1 receivers, this season has shown that you can't be successful without a guy who expands the field by taking the top off of defenses or possesses a gravity so large it contorts coverages. All 4 teams in the championship round had at least one. The two teams in the Super Bowl have multiple. Teams like the Ravens, that is one of the major things separating them from contention. Hollywood Brown is nice as a secondary slot receiver. For all of Lamar's passing inadequacies, it definitely doesn't help to have discount guys on the outside. The season showed you don't even need to spend a lot to get one. Sure, you can swindle one of the worst franchises into giving you Hopkins for a bag of chips, but you can also find value in the draft. Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb headlined an incredibly deep wide receiver class that was somehow even better than the year before. Featured DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, and Terry McLaurin. Okay, now this one's gonna seem a little bit obvious, but the term system QB has been thrown around far too often. It's now to the point where we penalize players for being in a good environment. Aaron Rodgers has long been the most talented QB in this league. His teams have shown time and time again to value the future over winning now with him. As a result, Rodgers often had to compete with nothing but third-string receivers. The Packers ended up missing the playoffs for 3 straight seasons. Rodgers looked like he was on the heavy decline. And then he gets Matt LaFleur and his play action system. They would leverage the run to open up the field. Instead of having a stagnant offense, they would have constant off-ball movement, scheming guys like Adams open, and the results have been night and day. 2 straight NFC championships, and Rodgers is back to MVP form. I mean, football is the ultimate team sport. No matter how elite a QB is, to win they need an elite system to complement them. A QB who would benefit from an advanced system would be Russel Wilson. Unfortunately though, this season has been yet a negative referendum on his ability to succeed without the Legion of Boom. Due to being overlooked because of his size, he fell into a good situation, surrounded by beast mode and hands down the most dominant and fearsome defense in modern NFL history. Russell didn't have to do much relatively speaking and was allowed to sit back and develop in the run heavy offense with assurance that the defense was going to get stops and make plays. They went 9-3 in the playoffs, made 2 Super Bowls, and won 1. The Malcolm Butler interception marked the end of an era, the dissolution of the Legion, the beginning of a transition to a Wilson-centric offense. In the 5 years without the Legion, Wilson and the Seahawks have only won 2 postseason games, not even making the playoffs in 2017. The season was probably the worst one since then. Wilson starting the season looking like he would get that elusive MVP vote. The playbook was completely centered around his arm, no more old school ground and pound. Russ was cooking, roasting, deep frying teams through the first quarter, and then like many years before, he cooled down. That playoff game versus the Rams was never going to be as easy as many thought. It was a divisional matchup, they play each other twice every year, they know each other inside and out, and the Rams had the best defense in the league. Still, this loss was inexcusable. Goff was playing with one hand, and even with both hands he's below average. Donald himself barely played in the second half, and as average as their defense has been, they kept them to 20 points through the start of the fourth quarter. Wilson was just horrible in this game, man, even if you include garbage time stats. Of course, any player would benefit from an elite defense. His offensive line is still below average as well, but due to the nature of how they split up, the Seahawks of the late 2010s and early 2020s will go down as a tale of 2 teams. This year is yet another black smudge on the ladder. That is all I have for y'all today. Tough that we had to go negative on the last one. That's just how it played out. I'm already around the 10-minute mark. Don't want it to be too long. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more from me, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, I'll see you later.